Try that one more time. Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Hi, how are we doing? Good? It's your last piece of the conference. Are you excited? Yes. And then we're all going home. Where's home for everyone? Manitoba? Toronto? I'm going back to Toronto too. I forgot to mention that. I was born and raised in Sask, but now I live in Toronto, which is expensive. The tips you guys gave me last night are going to go towards one coffee in Toronto. So I appreciate it. Let me pull up my notes here. Anyways, if you ever want to look busy and you don't want anyone to bother you, have a coffee in hand and an iPad and start walking fast. You look very professional. I'm actually just scrolling through Facebook right now to check on Res Drama. That was a joke. Okay, hi, my name is Leighton Robert George Bayette. I was born November 7th, 1999, which makes me a Scorpio and traumatized. I was born to my parents. My dad's side's Buffalo River Dene Nation, Treaty 10. Oh, look at her, she's beautiful. Who's that diva? So I was born to that side of the family. My dad's side, Buffalo River, Treaty 10, Saskatchewan. Then my mom's side is Fond du Lac First Nation. Thank you. What is this for? Oh. Oh my God, here we go. Cool. We do have the PowerPoint presentation. Awesome. Okay. I started to talk about Two-Spirit identity through my lived experience, and finally I created slides because I'm professional. So we have my performer name, Chelazon Leroux, and my given name, Leighton Bayette. Chelazon Leroux is a drag character and persona that I invented around age 12 or 13. The name comes from another contestant on U.S. Drag Race Season 3, Manila Luzon, the last name Luzon. And you can see it, Chelazon. And Leroux because it sounded fancy. That was about it. I thought branding. And Leighton Bayette, fun fact, my name was pulled out of a phone book. Yeah, literally, my mom tells me about it all the time. She says she was on the call with my auntie, and I was like, do you have any idea of what your baby's name is going to be? And she pulled out a phone book, flipped through it, and just said, Leighton. Yeah, so, cute, great. Awesome, first time in doing this. Look at little diva. So born November 7th, 1999. My mom always loves to tell the story and remind me that I was born after 3 days of labor. And I say, great things take time, according to Creator. So from Buffalo River Dene First Nation, my dad's side, Treaty 10. Then my mom's side is Fond du Lac First Nation, Treaty 8. Do I have any relative Saskatchewan peoples here? So we know where that is, north, far north, my mom's side, and northwest. So I'm Dene First Nations, Dene Suchline. I should introduce myself in traditional language. Edlanat E, Chelazon Leroux Hushie, Dene Suchline from Treaty 10 territory. Still learning, yes. Still learning. Okay, born and raised in Saskatchewan, so if you know anything about Saskatchewan, it's always been very loving and accepting of all peoples and diversity. No homophobia whatsoever. And born 1999, so I grew up in the 2000s. A lot of people, I say I'm a 90s baby, and they're like, you were born 99, and let's be real, the 90s didn't end until 2004. Trends didn't move that fast then. So, born and raised Saskatchewan throughout the 2000s. I was that little boy over there. Already knew who he was very loud, very creative, very adorable, great eyebrows, which still have stayed to this day. And was very authentic in their expression, already knew sort of their spirit in being. So one of the sacred lessons I was taught at a young age, 5, 6 years old, I remember my dad telling me that children, when they come to this earth, to this spirit world, they come from the spirit world and are just so innocent and pure, and can see things that we don't normally see or we're taught to not see over time. And the way I've interpreted that over time is that when I came to this earth, I already knew who I was. I have this feeling that your personality is already there, And I love to create. I love to dress up in Halloween costumes and tell stories and be loud and obnoxious. My brothers used to tease me and they called me Microphone, which here we are, diva. It's manifested to be pretty great. Okay, contestant on season 3 of Canada's Drag Race. Who's seen that? The rest of you are homophobic. Your homework is you must download and watch that season now. It's only 3 episodes that I'm in, and the finale, so it's not that much of a commitment, and it's on Crave. So, influencer, public speaker, drag artist, comedian, entrepreneur. I have tried a lot of things because I realized in my lifetime that I didn't want to stick to 9 to 5. No offense to you guys. I respect it, but a creative person, I feel like I just could not sit still in my mind. So my journey was not very linear in the traditional sense of like school, university, find a career. I hopped all over the place. My life was not linear. All right, best known as Auntie. Everyone here knows me as Auntie, and why I say that? Okay. So I gave that lesson last night. Aunties in our community are not always blood relations. They are these women that raised us and showed us a way to live in the world. And the reason I love my aunties so much is because no matter, I've seen the trauma they faced and the hard relationships that they had in their life, but they still found the ability to love their family and still had a way to laugh at things. So they're pretty rank, but let me tell you how I created Auntie. We're gonna jump around. My story is not linear, like I said. So COVID, do we remember those times? Yay! It was great for socially awkward people, I will agree. It made it very easy. I was living up north with my granny. It was 2020 in Fond du Lac, that side. Again, gonna jump around here. TikTok at that time was just seen as a cringy app for kids where you were dancing, and it was true, but they were having a lot more things there. So I downloaded it, did like some drag, like before and after transition things. Didn't really do too much. It wasn't that unique. But I fell across native TikTok, which was a lot of great artists and influencers who were telling their stories, and I'd never seen native influencers before this. So it was pretty cool. It inspired me. I was like, well, what can I do? I thought, what is a common experience that all Indigenous people live through? And that's when their auntie sits by a window and talks smack about everyone walking by. She's just loose like her beadwork. So... If you really want to hurt someone, you say that. Okay, what is Two-Spirit? So the term Two-Spirit was created in 1990 in Winnipeg, Manitoba for a Native and Gay Lesbian Conference by Elder Meyer Laramie. It's an English word that is used to describe something that we have understood in our many different nations across Turtle Island pre-contact. So before I go any further, do we have any understandings of the word Two-Spirit? Just raise your hand. Okay, I would love if you would share those understandings. It's not needing to be perfect. There's no wrong answers, just wrong energy. So I will fight. I'm kidding. Joking. Anyone want to share what they understand for Two-Spirit? Hi, yes. My father. Ooh, is there a mic? Okay. Yeah, damn.
Hi, my father is Two-Spirited, and he's informed me that he was born a man, but he also has a female inside him. So that's what I know of it.
Okay, great. Is there any other one that wants to share? I'm just gathering everyone's definitions before I say my piece. Someone over here?
Two parts of you that make you whole.
Anyone else? We got like one more definition. Now everyone's terrified and scared to get it wrong.
Before Equity Conference and learning so much through the union, I was aware of, I think, two spirits within the Indigenous community, that it was something that when you guys do your ceremonies, another spirit was brought forward. So when I had to shift and understand that there's another added definition onto it, I'd had that before, so I could kind of understand, but I'm still learning.
Right. Okay, so I will tell you there is no one right answer. Every nation has their own understanding of queerness and two-spirit identity, and that changed based on communities' roles and responsibility historically. So let's say, for example, my community, Dene First Nations, Dennisquixine, did not have a specific word to describe two-spirit in our traditional language, but there is understanding. So I was in Yellowknife for Pride there about 2 years ago, and that's also another Dene community. I was interviewed by someone with CBC who's Indigenous, and he's one of the uncles. So I was like, do you have any understanding of what it might mean for Dene peoples? And so what he described was that his grandmother described his cousin. It's all these family relations. We have extended families. So the way his grandmother described one of his cousin who is two-spirit was that is someone with a man's body and a woman's brain and blood. So I thought that was super interesting because even if we didn't have a specific word to describe two-spirit, there is an understanding of queerness in all these different nations. So no right or wrong answer. And in fact, I worked previously, this is past spring, with John Syllaboy. Do you know him over here? Two-spirit community member from Halifax. But his describing in Mi'kmaq was so interesting, because I had never seen it the way he did. He described it like your evolution of gender, sexuality, and identity as like a spiral instead of linear. So it's that we keep growing and evolving and adapting, that we never truly figure ourselves out. There's not one hard definition, and I think that changes. And so I think that was a very interesting way to describe it. But you have to go find him at some conference and ask him and tell him that you met me. All right, next slide. Attempted eradication of two-spirit. There's multiple factors that tried to erase our queer identity, and the reason I bring up old photos is so that people remember that even in contemporary culture where they think two-spirit is just popped up out of nowhere, there was queerness and, photographed evidence of that. So these are old photos from 1900s, 1920s, but one of them's Wiwa in the black and white photo there, who was brought to Congress or something. They invited this guest, didn't realize that they were born a man and dressed up as feminine. So that's one of the expressions of two-spirit. It's a very interesting story to read. But I want to talk about some of the many factors that tried to destroy our identities and why you might have only heard of this resurgence these last few years. So colonial views on gender and sexuality. The colonial world loves to categorize things in very strict boxes to identify it. A lot of our nations now are rediscovering that our expressions are so fluid, and even if you look at LGBT Western definition of queerness, it's non-binary or fluid definitions, and we kind of align with that. I wouldn't say they're exact same, because two-spirit identity has a spiritual connection and responsibility to community. So while they are similar, I always like to say that two-spirit or the traditional understandings don't always translate across cultures. So there's that. Residential schools, remember that? Yep, another factor. When they tried to decolonize, take the native of the child, they stripped any piece of identity, cultural or otherwise, and traumatized. So, of course, they would not allow two-spirit to be an expression with very strict religious views on what gender looks like. So religious beliefs, another factor. Sexual trauma and shame. The reason I put that there is that a lot of, even in Canada, contemporary to this day, I would say in our communities on the reserve, there is internalized homophobia based off of sexual trauma. And what I found through my experience is that some community members, even elders, because they were traumatized in these residential schools through same-sex violence, their only understanding of queerness is through abuse. So they don't understand what a healthy queer person can look like and express like, and that they project this idea that we are all sexually traumatized and are going to abuse others. And I realize that's a projection of their own pains. Because I've never, done anything to harm anyone. I just dressed up, put on a wig, and talk smack. So there's that. So another factor, missing and murdered Indigenous women, two-spirit peoples. In this country, if you are born an Indigenous femme, woman, you are more likely to go missing and not followed up with. And so two-spirit belongs into that. I will say that even in my own communities, two-spirit expression up until this point was heavily looked down upon, especially if you're a gay man. I guess, translating that, at a cousin who took their life because they did not feel safe in community to be themselves, got thoroughly bullied, even though there was many men or other boys in the community that would sneak around with him in the dark. So that is a very real thing that we experience as two people. All these things that we have to live through and still smile. So, here we are. Okay, revitalizing the role. I will say, historically, you can read that we had many different roles in community leaders, spiritual advisor, educators, caretakers, hunter, and gatherer. I like to say we're very versed in that way. We, killed the caribou, but we also were berry pickers at the same time. Very tradish. And highly respected because we're able to seen as going between both worlds, both feminine, masculine, and now contemporary world, indigenous and non-indigenous, like we are here. And so that just really means we're too snoopy. We like to get in all your business because we can't stay in one place. So gender and sexuality. I like to point this out. There's not one specific gender expression or sexual identity that defines a two-spirit person. Western colonial worldviews on gender and sexuality tried to categorize two-spirit identity incorrectly. Every nation across Turtle Island has different understandings of what these expressions are. If they don't have a specific word in language, they have a description of what we now define as two-spirit. So what I will say, why I say it's not defined to one gender or sexual expression, is that I've met many two-spirit relatives across Canada that identify as trans women, trans men, non-binary. There is so many different expressions, but it doesn't define two-spirit. So two-spirit to me is more of a spiritual, traditional, cultural role, and how we connect with our community, the way we share our experiences and bring community together. That's traditionally what a lot of two-spirit people did, is being these community leaders and advisors and being able to bring community together through laughter, performance, stories, and all that. I'm going to take a break. My mouth is very dry. Take a sip. We're learning so far? Yeah. And we're back. All right. My introduction to the word two-spirit. So I was in high school. One thing I didn't mention is that in this time, like I want to say 13 to 17, living through really hard times. I don't like to pretend to be perfect. My father's a residential school survivor. That created certain environments, including alcoholism and not being able to sleep. And so I don't like to lie to people. I'd like to be honest and authentic that was one of the factors I faced. However, this was a very wild time because in a time of extreme depression or trauma and stuff and suicidal thoughts, there was moments that showed me that there was a better future ahead, including understanding two-spirit. But drag was also something that saved me when I was going through my parents' separation and not knowing what to do. Drag was a wonderful escape from harsh realities. And so to me, whenever I talk about that and try to destigmatize the art of drag, is that it was a very wonderful, beautiful, glamorous world to escape from when I was living a harsh reality. So, in this harsh reality, grade 12, family dinner. Last year of high school, I was in Saskatoon. We had a family dinner at my dad's house. Different friends and family were there. One little young native boy came up and said, "Are you a boy or a girl?" I said, "I'm an icon." Realistically, I was like, does it matter? Being real defensive. And my dad was like, he's just two-spirit. Didn't know what that meant, but another time in that same year, grade 12, Saskatchewan, my Native Studies teacher hosted a smudging circle every week in the shop class. So I was interested. I wanted to go, so I went, and it was in the shop class. They had a circle of chairs, just like these little pull-up chairs, and I remember her saying specifically, men are going to sit on this side and the women are going to sit on this side. And I was like, I'm going to sit right in between both. I don't know, that was just my instinct, and so it was very interesting that I can look back and be like, oh, that was that two-spirit identity coming out, because I was, a bit of a rebel. And I've learned that two-spirit kind of have this very not destructive thing, but something where we are not going to be told what to do because we know what's right. And I find that can make a lot of people uncomfortable, but in truth is we're not here to make people comfortable. We're here to educate and like challenge these stigmas and stereotypes. So you can almost see us as what we describe as like a trickster spirit, or some people will see it as a chaotic force within community because we're challenging these traditional norms, which, by the way, are only traditional after contact, not before that. So really what we're trying to do is restore our traditional communities' ideologies of Two-Spirit and restore balance. You know, it might seem chaotic, but we realize that current beliefs are destructive to community members, that are judgmental, that are homophobic, that are killing our own community. So we realize that's wrong, and we fight back very hard to have our spot. And a lot of people can see that like, oh, they're just causing chaos and mess, but in truth, we're fighting so that all our relations can be happy and healthy and safe. So, growing up in Saskatchewan, I can recall many community members that were previously defined through Western lenses, gays and trans, but I realized that these were community members that were Two-Spirit and were always there and viewed in derogatory and negative ways, but they were themselves. And so I was not okay to be myself yet, but it was pretty cool to still see in like places like Dillon, Buffalo River, that there were queer people, because that was like, all right, you know, maybe there is a spot for me. Okay. I don't think I have time for that, but anyways, when we did this, that graphic's not going to show up. It's fine. They have a new Two-Spirit flag. It was introduced during the International Day of Pink tour that I did with John Sillaboy. If you have time, just Google it. It's really pretty. I forgot who designed it. Patrick Hunter designed it. Great artist, also from Saskatchewan, I believe. It's really nice, really stunning. All right, oh, and this leads to that. Many definitions of the word Two-Spirit I've heard from my other Two-Spirit relatives. Karen Potts, another Indigenous influencer, described it as whirlwind medicine. So like a tornado, that community would see as this destructive force that's going to rip everything up. But in truth, sometimes you need to cause that chaos and destruction to bring new growth. So yeah, it's what I've described it now as like a bridge between worlds, because we're always in between these masculine, feminine, Indigenous, non-Indigenous. But there's so many ways to see it. It's we cause chaos and destruction for good reasons. You know, I would like to see it like a forest fire. You might think it's all crazy, but in truth, sometimes there's only certain plants and certain crops and new growth that come up because of that. So I like to view it through that way. Okay. Next slide. Where are we now? The future. I realize that didn't format correctly, but that's okay. So Two-Spirit is always adapting to an ever-changing world, and so will the identity. Roles and responsibilities now will look different for the future generations and understandings of Two-Spirit. Put some great photos up there. Mani Chakabi, who wrote a book, you should go check it out, about her experience, Two-Spirit experience. John Sillaboy up there, my drag sister Shasha, Dr. James McCocus and his partner, who are on Amazing Race Canada. My drag mother, Jaylene Time, do we know her? No. We need to learn. Okay, there's only two people. Iconic. So quick story about her. She is originally from Saskatchewan, was 60 Scoop, result of that. So she lived in Saskatoon, or no, just outside of Saskatoon with her forced adopted family. But she started drag and realized she was queer and different, and you know, coming in Saskatchewan at that point, she had to escape. So she went to Calgary, started drag, then eventually ended up in Vancouver and still lives there. And she lived a whole life of, you know, that time, which was like the time of HIV and AIDS, where that wasn't acceptable, and her expression as a trans woman. And she lived through a lot of really wild things, but still managed to come out as a Two-Spirit community member and elder, even though she doesn't like that word. But she did Indigenous drag and was a great representative for Two-Spirit before we really had that definition. So it was like Vancouver Pride when I got to see her 2-3 years ago when I first came off of my season. And I was like, Jaylene, I've never had a drag mom, but if you were to ask, I would say yes. And she was like, okay, let's do it. So then there's some others. Alona Verley, who was in season 1 of Canada's Drag Race. Juana Style, who is Alona's drag mother, also Two-Spirit, and then from Alberta. Karen Potts, who I mentioned, great friend, also from Alberta. And then my drag daughters, Velvet, who is from Six Nations in Ontario, and then Ozzy from Far Northern. Ontario. All right, now I'm going to open up to questions. If you want to follow my social media, please go there. Don't watch it with your kids. I am not saying it's family friendly. There are swear words. So, yeah. Oh, also, it just got announced as Pride Toronto's Two-Spirit Ambassador this year. So that's... Woo! That was so solid. I got through that in like my allotted time. And we probably have a good like 4 minutes for questions. We'll see.
We're gonna play a video first.
Okay.
And then go to questions.
Okay. No, god damn. Oh, okay.
I'm going to be on season 3 of Canada's Strike.
Okay. Oh my god. Who put that together? Damn. Can you? I live. Okay. I did not see this. I was like, I've never seen this media before in my life. We're here. We're queer. It's a good time.
I'm going to be on season 3 of Canada's Strike Race.
Hi, my name's Chelazon Leroux. So I'm your first Saskatchewan girl ever, which is pretty sickening. Excited to represent the center of the prairies. My place being here is to represent for the unheard, the unseen, and be a voice and have a platform for Indigenous peoples. My drag is unapologetically Indigenous. We have to represent ourselves unapologetically because no one's gonna do it for us.
Maybe quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
You hope to make your people proud, you know? Damn. Looking back through the years of drag, my God, we've improved. It's what happens when you get a bit of a budget and more time to get ready. But here we are. I'm very proud of that young queer kid, you know. He did a lot, you know, little baby Leighton, figured out the world and managed to get a couple rhymes done.